It's important to know how to effectively format data in a worksheet. Let's, for starters, go to a sheet called Formatting in the file called Excel 1. Effectively what we've got here are a series of instructions in the grey cells, and typically, though not always, we're asked to do something with the cells to the right. What I'd like to do is just zoom in a little bit. So starting with the first instruction, which appears here in A3. The first instruction is to apply a certain font to the range B3 to D3. So I'll start by selecting the cells I want to format, particularly when it's more than one cell. The font is the style of writing, and up here on your Home tab in the Font group, you'll find that you have a button or a command called Font. It's a drop-down, and currently the font is Arial. The particular instruction in A3 wants us to apply the font Times New Roman, so I'll click the drop-down and I'll look for Times New Roman. Now sometimes it's immediately apparent, but sometimes you have to scroll. And as I'm scrolling, just watch to the right in the worksheet, you can see that it's showing me what the various fonts look like. So this can be useful if you're trying to find a font when you're not told to exactly apply a font. But I have to exactly apply the font Times New Roman, so I'm going to press the letter T on my keyboard. And that drills me down to those fonts beginning with T, and the first one being Tahoma. As I scroll down further, here's Times New Roman. So I'm going to click on Times New Roman. As you can see in the cells B3 to D3, the style of writing is quite different to perhaps the next row down. The next row down uses the font Arial, which is very much like print and clear and easy to read, whereas I go up a cell, I can see the font is Times New Roman, which is a little bit more ornate and a little bit prettier. So that's the font done. Now the font size, I'm going to select the cells B4 to D4, which is April, May and June. The font size is also on the Home tab and in the Font group, and it's currently set to 10. The instruction asks me to change it to 14, and again as I roll down you can see that to the right in those cells that the size of the writing is changing. The bigger the number, the bigger the writing. The smaller the number, the smaller the writing, so we're after font size 14. The next instruction says apply bold to the range B5 to D5, so I'll highlight B5 to D5, and now I'm going to click this button, which is my bold button. Notice also the shortcut key is Control B. If I click the bold button, now the writing is more bold than it was before, and if I click it again, I unbold those cells. So I'll turn the bold on. The next instruction says apply italics to B6 to D6. So I'll highlight B6 to D6, and here is a button with an I on it, and it also mentions the shortcut keys Control I, and this will apply italics when clicked. And when I click it again, it takes the italics off. So let's apply italics. The next instruction in A7 is to apply underline to B7 to D7. So I'll highlight B7 to D7, and I'll go up to the Font group again in my Home tab, and here's a U on this button, which implies underline. Notice also the shortcut key is Control U. Notice also that the underline button has a drop down, which implies that there's more options. If I click the drop down, you have the option of underline or even double underline. But the instruction asks for underline, so I'm just going to click underline. The next instruction says left align the range B8 to D8, so I'll highlight B8 to D8. And this time up in my Home tab, I'm not working with the Font group, I'm working with the Alignment group. And in the Alignment group I have three buttons. One aligns to the left, one aligns to the center, which it currently is applied, because you can see this button's got a bit of shading behind it, so that text is currently centered, and this one aligns to the right. So I'm going to click this button, and that'll align that text to the left. I'll then go to the next instruction, which basically says select the range B9 to D9 and center. And we discovered earlier that here is where the center button sits. So I'll click this button. I'm now going to highlight these three cells, and as instructed, I'm going to right align them by clicking this button here, Align Right. The next instruction in A11 is actually asking us to merge and center the text across the cells B11 to D11. So rather than center in a cell, we actually want to center across cells. And rather than have 3 separate cells, we want to merge them into one large cell. Up here in my Home tab and in my Alignment group, you have the option Merge and Center, and when I rest on it, I think the explanation or screen tip is quite good. It will combine and center the content of the selected cells into one larger new cell. This is a great way to create a label that spans multiple columns, and there's a wee illustration there. So I'm going to click this button and it will merge and center. I have one large cell now instead of 3 independent cells, and I've centered in that large cell. Notice also if I click the button again it turns it off, and I click it again it turns it on. There's also a drop down which applies more options. So if I click the drop down, I've got the option to merge and center, I've got the option to merge across, I've got the option to merge just the cells without centering, and I've got the option to unmerge the cells. So I'll turn around and merge and center. The next instruction says to apply the currency style to the range B12 to D12. So I highlight B12 to D12, and now on my Home tab I'm going to the number group. Now what we've got here is a button with a $sign on it, and this says the accounting number format. If I was to hit this drop down here, I've actually got accounting or currency. Now if you choose accounting, the idea with accounting is the dollar sits to the left of the cells. If I choose currency, the dollar sits close to the number. So there lies the difference between accounting and currency. So I'll choose currency. The next instruction in A13 is to apply the percent style to the range B13 to D13. So I'll highlight 0.5, 0.25 and 1, and I'll apply percentages either using this drop down here, and there it is there, or simply by clicking this percent button here, which applies the percent style. Notice also Control-Shift% will apply the percent style, and earlier Control-Shift $sign would have actually applied currency. But I'll click the percent style, it will multiply each of those values by 100 and apply a percent symbol. So 0.5 is now 50%. The next instruction says apply the comma style to B14 to D14. I'll highlight B14 to D14, and up here in my Home tab and in my Numbers group is a button that says comma style. The next instruction says to increase the decimal places to 4. What we have over here in the number group on our Home tab is increase decimals and decrease decimals. I'm going to increase the decimals 1, 2, 3 clicks to give me 4 decimal places. 0.5000. That's 4 decimal places. The next instruction actually wants us to decrease the decimal places to 0. They currently have 2 decimal places each, and I'm going to go to the Decrease Decimal Places button and click it once, twice, to give me 0 decimal places. The next instruction asks us to indent the information in B17 to D17. To indent is to push things in a little bit without having to use the space bar. And over here on my Home tab and in my Alignment group is the Increase Indent button. And I'll give that a click, and that will indent that text. If I click it again, it'll increasingly indent. And this one here is to decrease the indent. The next instruction therefore asks me to decrease the indent in B18 to D18. I'll highlight those 3 cells, and I'll decrease the indent. The next instruction wants us to apply a double bottom border to the range B19 to D19. Borders are very useful. Underline only underlines words, and you can see that up here in row 7. But borders actually underline cells. I'm going to go to the Home tab, and particularly the Font group, and head for this Borders button. If I click the drop down on the Borders button, I've got a variety of borders I can choose, from a single bottom to a top, to a left, to a right, all borders, just an outside border, a very thick outside border, and here is my double bottom border. I'm going to click this option here, and if I click away from the cells, you can see these cells have now got a double bottom border. In row 20, in this particular cell, in each cell we're going to apply a background color. So this cell here needs a red background color. And in the Home tab and in the font group, the background color is this button called Fill Color. And as it says here, this colors the background of cells to make them stand out. I'll click the drop down and I'll choose red. I'll go to this cell and I'll choose a background that's yellow. And in this cell, I'll choose one of the grey options. And I've applied a background color. This next instruction in row 21 wants us to apply a text color to each cell. I'll click on this cell and I'll go to this option here, which is the text color or the font color. The button's called font color, but as it explains, it changes the color of your text. So I'm going to change it to red, and there's my red text. This I'll make green text, and this I'll make blue text. Dark blue, blue, and this one here is light blue. So I'll go for blue. What we have now in row 22 is the need to apply superscript to the O only to the right of the 90. The way to do this is possibly to go up to the formula bar and select the O only, and then right click and choose Format Cells. I can then tick the option Superscript, and what this will do is it will lift certain characters that are selected above the text line or baseline, and I'll click OK. And what you can see here is that the O only to the right of the 90 has been lifted because we applied superscript, which I sort of say to the kids is like Superman. Let me give you another example. I'll go 100 meters squared, and over here I might put 300 meters cubed. Now I want to lift the 2 and I want to lift the 3 only. So I'll click on this option. I'll highlight just the 2 by dragging over it. I'll right click and go into Format Cells, and I'll choose Superscript and OK. I'll click over here. I'll highlight just the 3, right click, Format Cells, and Superscript, and OK. So that's one way that you can apply superscript, and I actually think that's the fastest way, though there are other ways, but stick to that way, it's the easiest way. The next instruction in row 23 is to apply a 90-degree text rotation or orientation to the range B3 to D23. Let's highlight this here. And what we're going to do in the Home tab and in the Alignment group is we're going to go for this button here. This is Orientation. Orientation will allow you to rotate your text diagonally or vertically, just as it explains here. So I'm going to click this option here, and then I've got various rotation options. I can go up 45 degrees, down 45 degrees, rotate up 90 degrees or down 90 degrees, or even go into this option and dictate exactly what degree of rotation I'm after. But to rotate 90 degrees is to rotate text straight up. So I'm going to click this option here. Immediately my text is rotated 90 degrees, which may enable me to actually reduce my column width if I've got very skinny numbers and these are column headings. The next instruction asks us to wrap text. So I'm going to highlight this group of cells here, B24 to D24, and I'm going to go to the Wrap Text button. And as it explains, wrap extra long text onto multiple lines so that you can see it all. And there's a wee illustration there. So I'll click this button and it wraps the text onto multiple lines so that you can see all the text without having to widen the column. The next instruction asks us to use the Format Painter to copy the formatting from the cell B25 to the range A3 to A25. So let me just scroll a little bit. I'm sitting on this cell here, B25, and over here on my Home tab in the Clipboard group, immediately under Cut and Copy, is the Format Painter. And as it says, if you like the look of a particular selection, and I do, that's B25, and you want to apply that look to other content, then simply click this button, and then simply drag, your mouse is now a paintbrush, over A3 to A25. And you've just painted that look onto those cells. The next instruction asks us to select a range of rows and set their height to a certain amount. Select the rows 3 to 28. Now we can't select this area here because technically those are cells A3 to A25 And we have to select rows, so we come right out the left here to select rows 3 to 28. We'll then right click and set the row height to 15 and OK. The effect of that is now row 23 has been truncated and so is row 24. To resolve row 23, I'm double clicking the line between the numbers 23 and 24. If I then also double click between 24 and 25, I'll best fit these two rows and I'll be able to see what's in them again. Select columns B to D, B, C and D, and apply a column width of 20. So again, I right click a column letter and go to column width and type 20. And I've set each of those columns to an equal width of 20 characters. The last instruction says apply the light style 11 to this range here. I'll select this range here, and on my Home tab in the Styles group, I'll go to the Format as Table button, and there is a light collection, a medium collection, and a dark collection. If I head to the light collection and rest on these options, they're all numbered. And here's 10, and here's 11. This is light style 11, and I'll click it, and I'll click OK. And I've applied a table style to this particular range, which is a quick way of formatting a range if you're not in the mood to formatting it manually.